Eastern Orthodoxy has great reliance upon the tradition of the Holy Fathers. And within the pool of Holy Fathers, there are certain heroes, champions, pillars, foundations that stand out and whose writings and reflections hold a certain bind on the interpretation of the Bible. We see at the Council of Trullo 692, which the Orthodox hold as universal, that it is a canon of biblical interpretation to not interpret the scriptures in deviation from the Holy Fathers. And since there is a gradation, sort of like a hierarchy of the Fathers vis-a-vis biblical interpretation, the interpretation of certain fathers takes precedence. Certain fathers takes precedence over others. One of those saints is the Holy Saint John Chrysostom. His name, as many know, Chrysostom, the golden tongue, golden mouth. I think it's the golden mouth. That was not what people called him during his life. They just called him John of Antioch, John of Constantinople. Later, he was referred to as John the Chrysostomos, the golden mouth, kind of similar to Bishop Peter, St. Peter of Ravenna, later called St. Peter Christologus, which I think does mean golden tongue. In any case, John Chrysostom's biblical interpretations hold a certain bind on the Orthodox Church. At least they need to be supremely reverenced. And because of that, the interpretations of Scripture by St. John Chrysostom cannot be dismissed by the Orthodox Church. There's also a long-standing tradition in the Orthodox Church that in Chrysostom's commentaries, specifically on the Pauline epistles, he received miraculous inspiration from the Apostle Paul himself, who whispered into his ear the interpretation of the 13 epistles in the New Testament of Paul. And that long-standing tradition is respected today in pilgrimages to the skull of St. John Chrysostom, which I think is held in Antioch. And the ear is held to be incorrupt in light of Paul's miraculous visitation and whispering into that ear. So all around, Chrysostom is a chief biblical interpreter for the Byzantine tradition. The last thing I'd say is that one of the ecumenical councils puts John Chrysostom at a very high level when it comes just under the authority of ecumenical councils. The Fifth Ecumenical Council says that there are certain saints whose writings on the true faith hold supreme value, and they cannot be dismissed. One of those saints was John Chrysostom, among others. So, this is relevant to the papacy, because what John Chrysostom says about the primacy of St. Peter cannot be dismissed by the Orthodox. So check out what's linked below to see what Chrysostom said on the authoritative primacy of St. Peter. And I think this will help in our dialogue with the Orthodox to bridge some length of the gap.